Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name is Thomas. We are now into the January transfer window. And that only means one thing: we are back with our scout reports. Of course, a very busy summer last year. We brought on this man, Richard Hall from Football Italia, to tell us a bit more about Alan. We know how successful that move ended up being. He has been brilliant for us. We got brilliant insight. That video did really well. So thank you all very much for your support on that one. And we're linked with another midfielder from Serie A today. So we brought Richard back on. Thanks for coming on, Richard. How are you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. And I'm really pleased that Alan's worked out so well for you guys. It's great to see. And I think Serie A has lost a good player there. But it's, like I said, it's great to see him doing so well for you guys.
Yeah, he has been brilliant so far. Of course, a couple of injuries so far. He is out until January, but linked with another midfielder. Clearly, Ancelotti is clearly not too happy with all the options that he has, linked with Sami Khedira. Of course, they've worked together before at Real Madrid. Just to kind of start off for people who haven't really been keeping up with Khedira's career for the past couple of years or so, how's it been going? Because, of course, he hasn't played in quite a while. I think it's since June that he hasn't played for Juventus. So what's been going on with his career at Juve?
Yeah, I really wanted to come on, like I did with Alan, and give you guys loads of hope that, that you're going to be looking at a player that's exciting. I mean, okay, or even experienced, because at the end of the day, I think he's 33 now. Look, what he's done at Juventus since he came there, at the very start, he was fantastic because, especially the way under an Antonio Conte system, when before, obviously Allegri was there was a transition between Conte and Allegri as well. And there's a lot of counter-attacking football, and he was certainly a player who's very good at breaking the play up and then starting these counter-attacks, very just efficient in his role. And, very popular with the Juventus faithful for quite some time. However, as I said, there's been a lot of injuries, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on, because they are extensive. And at the moment, Andrea Pirlo is looking at this Juventus midfield with the likes of Bentancur, Weston McKennie, even Aaron Ramsey's, playing at the moment. And he's really figuring out just exactly what he's got in that midfield. And so Khedira's not even been selected this season once. He didn't play very much last season for injury as well, and Dominicio Sarri. So at the moment, his career's on the wane, I'm afraid to say. So it's a strange one, really. His career, from an Italian point of view, the best way to say it is that I think that Juventus are looking at him as a player who's still under contract, earns €5 million a year, which is a lot for a player who's not even playing. And they are seriously looking to get him off the books. So, I can't really give you too much hope at the moment on where he's gone. If you want to talk about Khedira's career in the past, that's fine, and I can wax lyrical about that because there's been many achievements, and he's an absolute, a fantastic footballer. Has been, but that's exactly the point. He's I think now that he's extensively in the past.
Yeah, before we move on to kind of all of his injury issues, why specifically he hasn't been playing, we will start with how he was in the past because, of course, on his day, a brilliant footballer. He was brilliant for Ancelotti at Real Madrid. So what are kind of a few of his standout qualities that maybe he still possesses if he can actually stay fit? How can he add to the midfield?
Yeah, this is the thing. This is what I was trying to think of, obviously, when I knew I was coming on here, because trying to give some positives, because the thing with Khedira when he was at his best, I said before, to break up the play, very, very intelligent, very tactical player. You don't get to play at Juventus for that, and Real Madrid, but especially actually at Juventus without being intelligent. And tactically, he's very switched on. He's got the ability to be self-sacrifice, partly due to a lot of those injuries there. So, for instance, very disciplined in the sense that he would sit in that hole a lot of the time, break up the play, and very quickly and intelligently start the counter-attacks. A lot of that was done with short passes. I don't want to give anyone the impression that, he turned into sort of Pirlo, that changed his role, and was spraying passes left, right and centre, because that's not his game. A lot of it would be breaking up the play, making some runs forward, very physical, very powerful player, and then playing the ball to the correct person. And that sounds like nothing. It sounds like it's simple. But if there's a multitude of players, and I've used to pick one from the Premier League that used to frustrate me a lot, was Danielson for Arsenal, if you remember back in the day. He'd break up the play, and the passes were sideways. And a lot of midfielders do this. It's a simple option. Khedira broke up the play, but he would make the intelligent run and the pass that would just allow the next phase of play to happen. And that's huge, because what that allows you to do is sometimes when you've not got that creative, what in Italy they call like almost a number 10, the trequartista, it means that you don't always have that player. It then allows different phases of play to continue. So he was exceptionally good at doing the basics right, and also his intelligence and the way he played. But that took a lot of ability to break that play down, which, like you will know, if we use Alan as an example in that sense, it needs you to be quite quick and quite physical to do that, and then to move the ball afterwards. So that's the sort of player he was, definitely.
Yeah, and in terms of the system that he suits into, you mentioned he was very good for Conte. We know he's good for Real Madrid for many years. So we're currently kind of playing the 4-3-3 with that 3 in the midfield. But with injuries, we switched to a 2 in midfield. Which kind of role suits him a lot more?
It depends. It's difficult because I think that in his prime, in a 4-3-3, maybe the deeper one of the 3. He used to sit alongside Blaise Matuidi at times, and they would change the roles. Because Blaise Matuidi obviously sometimes would be, they would kind of use it as Blaise Matuidi breaks at the play, gives the ball to Khedira, and then you've got your creative hub of whoever that might be, for instance, in that next spot. At one point, of course, it was Paul Pogba. So it's interesting that he's versatile in that sense. Now in his current state, I don't know, because the thing is, and what worries me more than anything is that there's not, how can I put this? When I say Serie A is tactical, it still very much is. But it's nowhere near what people used to think about it in the early 90s, the Catenaccio style of football. It doesn't exist anymore. A lot of these teams, Napoli, Roma, Juventus, Inter at the moment, play very rapid football. But there is a different element to it. And to explain this very briefly, Patrice Evra was probably, I'll quote him in one respect. He said when he played for United on a fullback, he had very free license. All he had to do was to protect his winger. That was the only real instruction. He could overlap, and it was up to him. And it was very use your own initiative. In Italy, you play in grids. So, I've been to Inter, for instance, watched when Mancini was there, and you watch him train without the ball for half a day, and the ball is there, the team is here. Now, Khedira is expert at that. Absolutely expert, because he knows his job. He's like a chess piece. He can do that. The problem and what I worry about in the Premier League is because, yes, it's a little bit faster than the Serie A because of those movements. So being left to his own devices but then again, he has got Ancelotti, so that is a bonus. But if Ancelotti says to him, just go and sit in the hole and do this job, I believe he can do it in a 4 or a 2. But I am a bit concerned that he may be just overrun a little bit, because I have to be honest with you, and I don't want to put any any sort of a false hope in anyone's head. In Italy, it's seen as though his career is done. I mean, if he goes to Everton, especially on anywhere near those wages, Juventus will be paying for his playing fare. Well, they will anyway, but it's literally they will be thinking they can't believe it, because it's not that he's a bad player, but it's like having I don't know, an Aston Martin, but the engine's gone. It's
yeah.
What use is it?
And kind of just to focus on his injuries for a minute, because we see players like we've signed James Rodriguez. He's been injured for a few weeks now. He's making his way back, and he's had a career plagued by injuries. But normally they're kind of short term, then they're not that long term. Is there a problem with Khedira that he has one long term, or is it just loads kind of repetitive, keep coming back?
Well, normally when I'm talking on any radio or TV yourselves or whatever, I like to think I know my facts and I can just remember most of the stuff. I'm going to have to refer to this because there's so many. So I'm just going to do...
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's. I'm sorry, but that's the problem, because it's such a long list. It's quite bad. So I can give you the exact days he was out, the exact days that games he missed. So I'm just going to go in from last season. So in November, he had to have knee surgery. Now, this wasn't the first time he's had knee surgery. So that meant he was out for 87 days and missed 17 games. And then it only took really, I know this is over the off season and everything else, but from June, he tore his abductor muscle, and that meant he missed another 61 days, and that was another 14 games. That's pretty much a season. You know, it's quite intense. If you just look, even, now this gets worse because then you go back to 18-19, and I won't actually do any more than this, but he's had 2 muscle injuries, torn muscle bundle, ankle injury, knee injury, and unfortunately, and this is bad, he was out for 6 games because he actually had a heart condition. Obviously, you can expect him being out for fitness after that, but again, you know, he's nearly missing up near 20 games. Now, this is trying to say, and I've got a list as long as my arm going back through 17, 18, 16, 17, which, you know, it goes back from anything to back trouble to thigh problems to this continual knee problem. So again, you know, I would love nothing more to say that you're signing peak Sami Khedira, because he would be...
I'd love nothing more if we were signing peak Sami Khedira.
Absolutely, you know what I mean? But Ancelotti's, knows football more than I do. And, obviously, and he must know something. He must see something. He must see that maybe the deal he can get for Juventus, maybe Sami Khedira is going to take a most monumental wage cut just to keep playing. You know, if he does take a monumental wage cut and he costs nothing, and Juventus literally say, listen, get him off our books, and he comes over to you, you know, then could he still do a job here and there if he's fit? Potentially, yeah, but I don't see how you're going to get more than. I'll come in here again and say I'll be absolutely shocked if you sign him and he plays more than 10 games in a season. When I come on, I'll be delighted for him and for Everton. But yeah, at this moment in time, with that injury list, he's not been included in Juventus' squad, and this is a midfield where, you know, last season with Maurizio Sarri, that was the big problem, was the midfield. And so, you know, they brought in other players like Weston McKennie, who's been fantastic, but, you know, not featuring. I think that realistically, and credit to the Premier League with the rigours and what it takes out of you, that he couldn't really be going anywhere worse, really, could he? You know, it's for testing his mettle.
Yeah, and it seems like Ancelotti is trying to bring in these experienced players that maybe, they're not going to be fully fit, like James Rodriguez. I mean, Rodriguez has won it all. He's been across a few leagues, and he did start brilliantly for us. Had an injury problem, but there's also a problem that Everton have had for years that a lot of people point out is leadership qualities. Is there anything you can see in Khedira who could maybe provide that? Maybe that's what Ancelotti sees in him.
Yeah, now this is a really good point, because when you look back over time, I mean, I just use Italy as an example, but in the sort of mid-90s with Milan, after the great teams under Sacchi and Capello, when it started to sort of drift out and they started to still have that backbone, they started signing players like Viekovod, who was really, I think he was about 30, same age actually, about 33, 34 at the time. And you looked at him and he had injuries and you thought, why is he gone to Milan? He played very few games, but again, he was brought in because he was an old warhorse and very, you know, respected by all the players from what he'd done in the national team at Sampdoria, etc. And he had younger players coming through, like at the time Zvonimir Boban, and so he was brought in to sort of have that role. A modern day equivalent where it's kind of not worked out, and this is more the worry. If you look at Inter at the moment, Antonio Conte, again, a team that even though there's some experienced players in there, some younger players, like Bastoni and Barella, Esposito's now out on loan. And he again thought, you know, we've got to crack at the title. We can actually do something here. I need winners. So they turned away from signing the likes of Sandro Tonali, who went to Milan, and which was shocking in Italy. No one could believe that because he's supposed to be this new Pirlo. And they went for Kolarov and Arturo Vidal. And a lot of people, you know, were surprised. Now, this is the same thing. You know, you look at Kolarov. Kolarov has played with Inter. When he's played, he's been disastrous. But again, you look at his mentality. You know, he's managed to bridge the gap and play for Lazio and Roma. Nobody does that. You don't mess with Kolarov. And Vidal has been diabolical. He gives away penalties and gets sent off, and he's not brought the experience that's needed. But you can understand why Conte's done it. So in one respect, Khedira, what he can bring, you don't play for Real Madrid. You don't play for Juventus. You're two of the biggest clubs in world football. You know, without being tactically and mentally astute. So for that reason, I can completely understand if it was a free on wages, you get a couple of games out of him. And I mean, look at the benefits, what he could do for Alan, for instance. You know, that would be, now, is that worth the wage? Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, and kind of just the final question I have, because at this point, of course, it is all still speculation. That is the magic of the transfer window. There are a lot of different conflicting rumours in the English press, really. I'm not sure anyone's really convinced what's going on. I think the Echo have come out and claimed that we're not in from Sky Sports, love to claim that we are. It's a bit all over the place. So what are the Italian media saying about this move? Does it sound realistic, or that it's a possibility?
No, there's been nothing really mentioned about it. If I'm honest, there was a small report in Tutto Sport the other day talking about that. Obviously, from the English links, they're just reporting what the English papers are saying, of course. And so, yeah, there may be some legs behind it. And the only reason I could see it potentially being valid is because if I take the way the Italian clubs are looking at things at the moment is that the coronavirus, the pandemic, has absolutely, just as it has in England, it's sapped the finances of clubs. Revenue's gone from like 70% down to 50% over, because of this. And so you're looking at all the big clubs aren't spending. Everyone's looking at the smaller transfers, free transfers. It's something where there's going to be not a lot of movement. So in that sense, the transfer window, it's not like it is in England where you have, Sky Sports News and is it Jim White with the yellow tie and everything going on?
Yeah.
It's very much just more about that, the sports papers will link when, especially in these sort of times now, when there's really a bit of smoke with it. So there's not been too much said about it. However, as I said before, that doesn't mean it couldn't happen, because for me, the biggest reason it would is the 5 million euros they're paying him a year. So I think that Ancelotti, the relationship that he has with a lot of Italian clubs, with especially of course with Juventus, would go a long way. It could be mutually beneficial. If Ancelotti wants him for the reasons we've spoken about, Juventus will happily let him go. I think Khedira now, if he's feeling that he's fit at last after having this time out, and he feels like he's got something to offer at his age, it's worthwhile doing. It's an attractive place to go. Everton are a big club in a big league. Why not go? The players he's been playing around, he knows the likes of James Rodriguez. So, he knows the likes of, Alan as well. Played against him. So he knows the quality you guys have got. So, yeah, I think it would be possible. But as for the press, don't worry about the fact that if it's not been played up too much, because there's not much news at the moment in Italy for transfers.
Yeah, so there you have it. Thank you very much for coming on, Richard. If I could just ask, in the briefest possible way, can you see this move being any success if it does go off?
I'm a positive person as well, but you know what? Look, no money, small wages, the influence he has in the dressing room, and if you can get 10 good games out of him, then what are you going to lose? You've got to assess anything on risk and reward, and for me, the better the deal, the less risk. What's the problem? The thing is, I think the biggest thing out of this is that if he comes over, expect him to get injured, expect it not to work, and the best thing that can happen, it could really surprise you. And there's nobody more than myself after his injury career, which I've literally never had to do this before, to bring up a list. If he, like I said before, if he plays 10 games and you guys get even close to 50% Sami Khedira, it'll be a benefit. So, if he comes over, he's not going to change his season, but he can have influence on the other players, and he could do okay.
So there you have it. Thank you all very much for watching. Not exactly the rave review we got about Alan, but there's still a possibility of this being a good move. Be sure to check out all the social media down below. Check out Richard's. Really appreciate you coming on again. Always the most insightful man we can go to talk about Italian football. So thank you all very much for watching, and join us next time on the Toffee Blues.